Joel Veldkamp, a lot to break down today and discuss surrounding Nigeria. Your organization, Christian Solidarity International, put out a statement about a Catholic priest who was recently taken hostage. What happened?
So this is Father Alphonsus Afina, and he operates in an area of Nigeria called Maiduguri. This is really ground zero for the Boko Haram terrorist movement that's been terrorizing Christians for almost 15 years now in Nigeria. And he is actually one of CSI's partners. So he helps us distribute food to people who have survived Boko Haram attacks and who are now displaced. They've had to flee their villages and live in camps in the main city of Maiduguri. So he's known to us. It's not just another, unfortunately, Christian priest or pastor who's been kidnapped in Nigeria. He's actually someone who has helped us to help Nigerian Christians suffering from persecution. And he and his team were going from one town to another in the region, and their convoy was attacked with RPGs, rocket-propelled grenades. One of our other partners, a man named Zion Japheth, was killed, actually, and then Father Alphonsus was abducted. His abductors forced him to call his bishop, tell him that he had been abducted. He got to ask the bishop to pray for him, and that's the last contact that we've had with him. That was on June 1st.
So that's over a month ago, and you have no idea how he is faring, if he's even alive at this point. You know nothing. You've heard nothing.
We haven't heard anything. He is the 15th or the 16th priest or pastor who's been kidnapped in Nigeria this year. Sometimes they want ransom money, and other times they're abducting them in order to kill them, in order to terrorize the Christian community. And the fact that we've heard so little just makes me worried, frankly.
Well, you know, I was going to ask you that question of how often this is happening. The fact that you have 15 or 16 faith leaders who have been taken and abducted this year alone is horrifying. And I think it underscores the fact that there is a much bigger and broader issue going on here, which we'll talk about in a moment. But CSI, your organization, has put out a statement on this, and you're calling on the Nigerian government to get involved and do something. What precisely would you like to see them do?
Something to take the case seriously. You know, it would be great to have the Nigerian president say something about this on the record. It would be great to have increased military and peacekeeping operations in Maiduguri. And frankly, we believe that there are figures in the Nigerian security establishment who have links to Boko Haram and who have links to other Islamic terrorist groups operating in Nigeria. And they should use those links to get this man home to his church, to his loved ones.
You know, he's a partner, as you mentioned, so this would be horrifying no matter what, obviously, if you had a priest or a pastor being abducted. But this is a partner who works with CSI, who has helped. How does this affect your work, you know, when this sort of thing happens on two different levels? A, the practical level of what he was helping with, and now that is being taken away. Obviously, the bigger issue is his well-being, but that's being taken away. And then the other factor, I would imagine, that people are hesitant to become partners if they're watching this sort of thing happen to people. So can you talk about those dynamics?
Yeah, absolutely. So Father Alphonsus was part of the Justice and Peace Development Commission run by the Catholic Church in Maiduguri. So his co-workers are now filling the role that he filled for us. So thankfully, our operations in Maiduguri are continuing relatively unhindered. But absolutely, this is a huge deterrent to other people who might want to join these sorts of relief efforts, because it is dangerous work. And I'm convinced that this is why he was kidnapped, because Boko Haram does want to terrorize people and to keep people from trying to help their fellow Nigerians who are suffering in this situation. And what makes Father Alphonsus so special, he's actually a new partner to us, because until 2024, he was living in Alaska. For 7 years, he worked with different dioceses in Alaska, in the United States. And he made the choice to return to Nigeria to serve his people. While he was in Alaska, he was taking special courses in counseling and therapy with the intention of helping Nigerians who have been traumatized by these attacks. So this is someone who went back into the fire to help his fellow Christians, to help his fellow Nigerians. And this is really an example of faith and service for all of us.
You know, and you know, 2024, you go back to 2022. I believe that was the year that you and I first started talking at CBN a lot more about these Nigerian issues. Those issues weren't new, but they were kicking up and they were becoming more mainstream because of the stoning of a college student that happened that year. So he chose to go back into a situation 2 years later that was dire and difficult and horrific. And we're hinting at some of that right now. But for those who are watching or listening and they don't know, they don't understand just how bad this persecution is in Nigeria, and keeping in mind that this is a country, and this may seem strange to people that, and correct me if I'm wrong on the numbers, are roughly half are Christian, half are Muslims. This is not a country where it's 98% Muslim and 2% Christian. And yet you have this intensive Islamic radical behavior that is killing Christians. Can you just talk about, from a 30,000 foot level, what is actually happening in Nigeria right now?
Sure. So Nigeria is the deadliest place in the world to be a Christian. More Christians are killed for their faith in Nigeria than any other country in the world by far. And as you point out, Nigeria is about half Christian and half Muslim. Nigeria is an enormous country. There are almost 200 million people living there. And most Christians live in the south, although many Muslims live there as well. And the north of Nigeria is mostly Muslim. And it's in the north that we're seeing the most intense violence against Christians. Beginning in 2009, extremist groups like Boko Haram, which later aligned with ISIS, with the Islamic State, started a campaign to wipe out Christianity in northern Nigeria. That was their goal. All the Christians should convert or be killed or leave. There's another region of Nigeria called the Middle Belt that's mixed Muslim and Christian. And in this area, we're seeing groups drawn from the Fulani ethnic group attacking Christian village after Christian village and just massacring the people and driving the survivors away. So in the Middle Belt of Nigeria, you're seeing a kind of a slow ethnic cleansing process. They're trying to turn a religiously mixed region into a region that's all Muslims. And this really has to do with the efforts of the security elite in Nigeria to stay on top of the country and to keep from losing their power and their privilege. They're using these groups as instruments of their power. So it's extremely grim. And unfortunately, the United States doesn't seem that interested in doing anything about it. The United States seems to think that as long as they have a good relationship with the Nigerian government, they can get what they want out of Nigeria, and it doesn't matter how many Christians are being killed there. We think that's pretty immoral, but also quite foolish, that you're going to be able to build a durable or sustainable relationship in a country where so much violence is occurring.
Well, and what's interesting is obviously the country's a particular concern list with the State Department. Nigeria was placed on that by the Trump administration the first go around. Biden administration removed Nigeria. We have talked about this before. With what you just said, do you think there's less interest in this second Trump administration in doing something about this than there was the first? Or do you think the jury's still out on that?
I think the jury's still out. And, obviously, President Trump has his hands full. There's a lot going on in the world. But Nigeria is a critical country for the United States and for the world. It's an enormous country. It's a country with enormous oil resources. It's a major source of immigration to the West and to the United States. And it's in the U.S.'s interest to have Nigeria be a place where people are not afraid of getting kidnapped and killed, especially if they're Christian. If I had the ear of the president or anyone on his National Security Council, I would say, have a closer look at what your team on Nigeria is doing and take an interest in it.
Well, I so appreciate you coming on to break this down. We're going to continue to cover this. Where can people go if they want to know more about Christian Solidarity International, support your efforts, or educate themselves on issues like what we discussed today?
Absolutely. I'd invite people to visit our website at www.csi-usa.org. There you'll find out how you can pray for persecuted Christians, how you can give to support persecuted Christians, and we'll do our best to keep you updated about our advocacy efforts for persecuted Christians.
Well, Joel, as always, appreciate your time today.
Thank you, Billy.